It is believed the first non-native people to discover Vancouver Island were Spanish explorers, likely around 1592. Perhaps even Juan de Fuca himself.
What a great place to build a golf course!
And so it began. The first settler in Nanoose Bay was John Enos. He arrived in 1862, about the same time that Nanoose Bay officially appeared on the map. He named his homestead Notch Hill Ranch. The early 1900s were a busy time for the Nanoose Peninsula. In 1911, a German firm built a brick plant at Brickyard Bay. The blue clay was transported from the Nanoose Peninsula by their own railroad, and a coal-fired plant made the bricks. The coal was brought in, and the bricks shipped out by barge. In 1914, the giant Powder Works company opened very near to where the Navy base now stands. They manufactured dynamite and gunpowder used in mining, land clearing, and World War I. The town site had their own water, sewer, and power systems. There were 17 houses, a large dormitory for the workers, 4 miles of railroad track, a tennis court, and a swimming pool. On New Year's Eve 1918, a shed with 50 tons of nitroglycerin exploded. The blast was felt as far away as New Westminster. They thought it was an earthquake. The plant was rebuilt, but eventually moved to James Island near Sydney, BC. The giant Powder Works eventually amalgamated to become Canadian Industries Limited, CIL. In 1912, a large lumber mill, Straits Lumber, was built at the entrance to the Nanoose Peninsula. The camp and mill were built on pilings on the water side of the E&N Railroad. There was a company store, post office, school, boarding houses, and a small community of private homes. The international demand for Nanoose cut lumber was huge, and they became very successful, eventually becoming the largest mill in the Pacific Northwest. With the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, they lost their biggest customer, Japan, and were out of business in months. In 1929, a failed attempt was made by a large steel company to build a company recreation facility at the base of Notch Hill. It was to include various recreational venues, including an 18-hole golf course. One wonders what they would have called it. In 1952, the Royal Canadian Navy bought 580 acres to build the Military Experimental Test Range. The range was used for testing acoustic torpedoes. By 1965, the facility became a joint Canadian-U.S. base for testing underwater weapons. It is said to be the only part of the Canadian Armed Forces that actually makes money, as many Allied countries rent the facility for up to $1 million a day. In 1968, Ranch Point Ranch Company, consisting of Anton Kreit and a few others, were developing residential lots called Gary Oaks. They also purchased the 1,300 acres that is now Fairwinds. In 1972, the new BC government brought in an agricultural land freeze, which potentially could have been a big problem. However, Anton was very well connected politically, and eventually only the flatlands were included in the freeze. In 1980, 4 men with exceptional vision were busy putting a plan together to purchase the 1,300 acres. Fresh off some cash from developing Madrona Point, the 4, Neil Scott, Al Slaughter, Frank Herman, and Bill Benner, formed Ranch Point Estates Limited. In just a matter of days, these energetic men sold debentures and raised sufficient funds to complete the purchase of the property in 1981. Their vision was to build a multi-phase development centered around a championship 18-hole golf course while preserving Nanoose Bay's natural beauty. Gordie Ralston, a brilliant planner from Victoria, was hired to design a master plan which turned out to be the largest single development ever undertaken in the regional district of Nanaimo. You can see on this 1984 master plan that the various phases of residential and the golf course layout have pretty much stuck to the plan, with the major difference being that the marina and hotel at Brickyard Bay didn't happen. Les Ferber, who apprenticed under Robert Trent Jones Sr., was hired to design the golf course, and construction of the first roads and services started. As part of the agreement with the RDN, Fairwinds constructed a state-of-the-art sewage treatment plant and sewer system designed to handle the entire peninsula. Work had already begun on the golf course. However, it was at the groundbreaking ceremony in 1987 that new equity partners were introduced. Bartrack Holdings Limited, second and third generation Finning tractor families, came on board as equity partners to help develop Fairwinds. Fairwinds was able to strike a deal with Malaspina College through their heavy equipment program to help carve out and shape the golf course. They worked on the land into the second year of construction, and it was with local contractors that the golf course was completed. This was not easy land to build a golf course on. Only 20% of the land was clear. Holes 8 and 11, being mostly hayfields, were the easiest. However, the rest of the course had heavy forests, creeks, streams, and non-stop rock. Numbers 13, 18, and 2 were particularly difficult. Some areas, such as 12 and 17 fairways, were often underwater. Through a layer of clay and then sand, parts of these two fairways actually float and have a series of pipes and sump pumps under the clay. As you can see, hole number 2 required a massive amount of rock drilling, blasting, and removal. The first 9 holes of Fairwinds Golf Club opened in 1988, with the second 9 completed the following year. For the first couple of years, the golf club operated out of a trailer located on the parking lot. To help make Fairwinds a complete recreational development, Fairwinds purchased the Schooner Cove Marina and Hotel. For the opening tee shot, there was Neil Scott, Al Slaughter, Les Ferber, Dick Burke of Bartrack, and Bob Rogers, the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. Clubhouse construction began in 1989 with the usual blasting and pounding of rock. Situated on a rocky knoll, it features a terraced deck overlooking the 9th green. Looks like Gord Nichols is giving Fairwinds' first pro, Rick Kennedy, some ideas on how to decorate the pro shop. Gord Nichols and Mike Yip are the remaining active original members of Fairwinds. Significant progress started in 1989 on the residential side. 550 housing lots were brought on and miles of services were put in, all underground. Note Schooner Cove with no buildings or construction on the hill. The Glen Eagles townhome development was built. 1991 saw the roads and services being put into the Schooner Ridge and the Collingwood-Carmichael section. In November 1992, there was a major storm, a southeasterly that caused havoc at the marina. As much as there is a significant breakwater to protect the marina, a few of the outside wooden pilings broke and caused a domino-type effect to the other pilings and docks, resulting in damages totaling almost $2 million. New docks were built, and this time they used steel poles, drilled into the rock and pounded deep into the sea bottom. More excitement at the marina, this time with the gas dock catching on fire. Schooner Cove Marina is our gateway to the many pleasures of life on the BC coast. In 1999, the entire Fairwinds property was purchased by the British Columbia Investment Management Corporation. The corporation provides funds management for public sector pension plans, provincial government bodies, and publicly administered trust funds. Based in Victoria, BCIMC ranks as Canada's fourth largest pension fund with assets of $92 billion. There is no shortage of characters at Fairwinds.
I was in grade school. At a 10-year-old, I'd probably be in grade 2 or something. But anyway, I'm in there, and they show up with this English refugee, and they said, well, you know, welcome to Canada, and we're glad that you're here and not in England, being bombed by the Germans and whatever. And but we spell our name in syllables in this school. And the teacher turned and said, oh, Don, would you stand up and spell your name in syllables? So I said, oh, D-O-N is Don, A-L-D is Ald, is Donald, A-S-H is Ash, is Ald Ash, is Donald Ash, B-E is B, is Ashby, is Ald Ashby, is Donald Ashby. And so the teacher looked at this little war orphan there from England and said, do you think you could do that? He said, oh, I think so. He said, A-R-C-H is Arch, I is Archi, B-A-L-D is Bald, is Eyebald, is Archibald. H-A-S-S is Ass, is Bald Ass, is Eyebald Ass, is Archibald Ass. H-O-L-E is Hole, is Asshole, is Bald Asshole, is Eyebald Asshole, is Archibald Asshole. B-R-O-K-E is Broke, is Hole Broke, is Asshole Broke, is Bald Asshole Broke, is Eyebald Asshole Broke, is Archibald Asshole Broke. He says, my name's Archibald Asshole Broke.
Speaking of characters, Fairwinds' 1994 team for the provincial John Deere Club playoffs in Whistler were Carl Fredrickson, Neil Scott, Jim Defoe, and Ward Stouffer, winning the event and a trip to California for the John Deere International. Jim Defoe was the Fairwinds Golf Superintendent for 24 years. He was named BC Superintendent of the Year in 2010. A pin oak tree has been planted in his memory and can be seen as players exit the 14th green.
Ward, you've been here some 21 years. I'll bet you've got some interesting stories to tell.
Yeah, well, one was shortly after I got here. We had a report that a cart went in the pond on 11. And when I went out there, Bill Barron and his son-in-law, I believe, were looking into the pond, and there was just the lid of the cart showing. So we got a truck, and I tied a rope to it and looked at Bill, and Bill looked at me, and he started to take his clothes off so we could go in and tie the rope to the cart. He got right down to his underwear, which happened to be bright red. So after a couple attempts to tie it off, and we got the cart out, and it was an electric cart. It ran real good. And from then on, of course, I have to look at Bill and call him the Red Baron because of his underwear.
We are so fortunate to play on this golf course and watch the wonderful wildlife around us. Perhaps the hardest working employee of Fairwinds is our friend, Eddie the Eagle.
So Ann, tell us what Eddie does for the golf course.
Well, Eddie's part of the geese management program. We've started about 4 years ago here, and they had quite a problem with geese. They tried many different tactics to bring the numbers down, but as in many places, it's very difficult to do. So we came in with the dog and Eddie and brought the numbers down from about 300-400 to about 30 or 40 now. They're just the home-based group, so it's been very successful.
Fairwinds has so many looks and feels. Sometimes it's gorgeous, sometimes it's a winter wonderland, sometimes a little frosty, sometimes a little eerie. So what do we have in store for the next 25 years? More of the same, we hope. One wonders if Wanda Fuca would have any advice for us.
Keep it in the short grass.